History is full of stories of incredible discoveries, moments when a lucky turn of fate peels back the layers of time to reveal a lost treasure from the ancient world. But no discovery is quite like the one made by a team of Greek sponge divers in the spring of 1900. Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his crew were sailing through the Aegean Sea when a violent storm erupted, forcing them to take shelter near the tiny, remote island of Antikythera. When the storm passed, they decided to dive in the unfamiliar waters, hoping to find sponges. Instead, they found a time capsule. A diver named Elias Stadiatis was the first to explore the seabed over 150 feet below the surface. He returned to the boat in a state of terror and excitement, babbling to his captain about a horrifying sight: a shipwreck littered with the rotting corpses of horses and the pale, naked bodies of women. The captain, fearing the diver had gone mad from the immense pressure, a condition known as the bends, prepared to pull up anchor. But first, he decided to dive down himself to verify the story. What he found was not a scene of horror, but one of jaw-dropping wonder. The corpses were not bodies, but a trove of magnificent bronze and marble statues scattered across the seafloor, casualties of a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. Over the next year, a massive and dangerous recovery operation was undertaken, the first major underwater archaeological expedition in history. The divers, battling the extreme depths and the risk of decompression sickness, brought an astonishing collection of ancient treasures to the surface. There were life-sized marble statues of Greek gods and heroes, their features still sharp after centuries in the abyss. There were exquisite pieces of ancient glassware, intricate gold jewelry, and ornate pottery. The prize of the collection was a magnificent, larger-than-life bronze statue of a young man, known today as the Antikythera Youth, a masterpiece of Hellenistic art. The Antikythera shipwreck was a monumental discovery, a direct window into the world of the 1st century BC. And amongst all these priceless works of art, the divers also brought up a rather unremarkable object. It was a greenish, calcified lump of bronze, about the size of a large book or a modern laptop. It was misshapen, covered in marine concretions, and looked like little more than a piece of the ship's wreckage or a fused collection of rocks. It was brought to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, along with the statues and the jewelry, but it garnered little attention. While archaeologists marveled at the beauty of the statues, this corroded lump was little more than a curiosity, a footnote to the main find. But history would prove them wrong. That ugly, corroded lump of bronze was not a footnote. It was the headline. It was, in fact, the single most valuable and important treasure recovered from the wreck. For locked inside that lump, hidden beneath layers of corrosion, was a secret that would shatter our understanding of the ancient world. It was an object so complex, so sophisticated, and so far ahead of its time that by all historical accounts, it simply should not have existed. It would take over a century of painstaking research and the most advanced technology of the 21st century to finally reveal its purpose. This is the story of that lump of bronze, the story of the world's first known analog computer, the Antikythera Mechanism. Before we can hope to understand the mysterious bronze device, we must first understand the world from which it came. The Antikythera Mechanism was not discovered in a tomb or buried beneath a ruined city. It was found in a shipwreck, a sealed time capsule that offers a perfect snapshot of a single fateful moment in history. For archaeologists, the wreck itself is a treasure as valuable as any of the artifacts it contained, as it provides the crucial context for everything found within it. Painstaking analysis of the ship's timber, its cargo, and most importantly, the coins found at the site have allowed historians to date the shipwreck with remarkable precision. The pottery and large clay jars, known as amphorae, point to a design common in the eastern Mediterranean during the 1st century BC. But the most definitive evidence came from the coins minted in Pergamon and Ephesus, which placed the ship's final, tragic voyage somewhere between the years 70 and 60 BC, during the turbulent final days of the Roman Republic. The ship itself was a colossal Roman-era cargo vessel, a heavy-duty transport ship estimated to have been over 100 feet long. This was not a small fishing boat. It was a freighter, designed to carry a vast and valuable cargo across the Mediterranean. And its cargo was indeed valuable. The collection of art it carried was staggering. It included dozens of marble statues and at least 7 life-sized bronze statues, which are incredibly rare finds, as most ancient bronzes were melted down over the centuries for their metal. Some of the statues were dated to the 4th century BC, making them revered 300-year-old antiques, even at the time the ship sank. This was not a standard merchant vessel carrying grain or wine. This was a treasure ship. The prevailing theory, supported by the nature of the cargo, is that the ship was a Roman vessel sailing from the coast of Asia Minor modern-day Turkey, or from a major Greek cultural center like the island of Rhodes. Its destination was almost certainly Rome itself. In the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic was in its final stages of conquering the Greek world. It was a common and celebrated practice for victorious Roman generals and wealthy governors to plunder Greek cities of their greatest artistic masterpieces. These treasures were shipped back to Rome to be paraded in magnificent triumphal processions, and later used to decorate the lavish villas of the Roman elite. The Antikythera ship was almost certainly one of these plunder vessels, a floating museum of stolen Greek art on its way to the heart of a new empire. Its final journey would have taken it along a treacherous but common trade route through the Aegean Sea, heading west towards Italy. The channel between the large island of Crete and the Greek mainland, where the small, rocky island of Antikythera lies, was a notorious maritime choke point. The area is infamous for its powerful, unpredictable storms that can appear with little warning. It is all too easy to imagine the scene. The massive, heavily laden cargo ship caught in a violent gale, battling ferocious waves as the crew desperately tried to navigate the dangerous rocky coastline. They lost the battle. The ship was smashed against the island's cliffs and sank quickly, plummeting over 150 feet to the seabed. There it lay, its treasures sealed away in the deep, cold water, its existence forgotten for nearly 2,000 years. The context of this shipwreck is what makes the Antikythera Mechanism so profoundly important. Because we can so accurately date the ship's final voyage, we have a definitive terminus ante quem, a latest possible date for everything on board. We know, with certainty, that the mechanism was built before 60 BC. This fact provides the solid, unshakable foundation upon which the entire mystery is built. And because the rest of the cargo was so clearly of Greek origin, it provides overwhelming evidence that the strange, geared device was not a Roman invention, but another masterpiece of Hellenistic Greek science and engineering, a treasure that was, like the statues, being carried away to a new home. After its recovery from the sea, the corroded lump of bronze was transported to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, along with the magnificent statues and other treasures from the wreck, while conservators immediately began the delicate work of cleaning and restoring the priceless works of art. The unassuming lump was set aside, a low-priority item in a collection of masterpieces. It was catalogued, photographed, and largely ignored. For the archaeologists of the early 20th century, it was a curiosity at best, perhaps a piece of the ship's anchor mechanism or some other mundane nautical equipment, fused into an unrecognizable shape by 2 millennia at the bottom of the sea. This casual disregard came to an abrupt end on May 17, 1902, about a year after its recovery. As the lump slowly dried out in the museum, the internal stresses from its corrosion caused it to fracture. The object that had been a single solid mass split apart, revealing something that left the museum staff in a state of utter disbelief. Peeking out from the cracked, calcified layers were the unmistakable, precisely machined teeth of bronze gears. Not one or two, but a whole system of complex, interlocking gear wheels. The discovery was baffling. It was a complete anachronism, a piece of technology that seemed to have been ripped from another millennium. The historical understanding of ancient Greek technology at the time was that it was impressive, but simple. The Greeks were masters of architecture, sculpture, and philosophy. They understood levers, pulleys, and basic hydraulics. But the idea that they possessed the knowledge to create complex, differential gearing was unheard of. In the entire known catalog of ancient artifacts, nothing even remotely similar had ever been found. This single object presented a profound and deeply uncomfortable puzzle for historians. The gears visible within the mechanism were of a complexity and sophistication that, according to the entire accepted timeline of technological progress, should not have been invented for another 1,400 years. The first mechanical devices of comparable complexity were the great astronomical clocks that began to appear in the cathedrals of 14th century Europe. How could a device from the 1st century BC contain technology that was, by all accounts, more than a millennium ahead of its time? Early attempts to explain the mechanism were tentative and inadequate. Some scholars suggested it might be a type of astrolabe, a simpler astronomical instrument known to have existed in the ancient world. But the sheer number of gears and the visible complexity of their arrangement quickly ruled out this simple explanation. Others, unable to reconcile the object with their understanding of history, even proposed that it might be a modern device, perhaps a 17th century clock that had fallen from another ship and landed on top of the ancient wreck. But its advanced state of corrosion and the way it was fused with other artifacts from the wreck made this highly improbable. For decades, the mechanism remained an enigma, a source of frustration and fascination. It was too fragile and too corroded to be taken apart without destroying it, so its inner workings remained a mystery. It would take a new kind of investigator, someone with a background in both history and physics, to begin to unravel the puzzle. That investigator was Derek de Solla Price, a British historian of science who first encountered the mechanism in the 1950s. He became obsessed with it, realizing that it held the potential to completely rewrite the history of technology. He would spend the next 2 decades painstakingly studying the fragments, using early gamma ray and X-ray imaging to get the first crude glimpses of its hidden interior. It was Price who first proposed the radical idea that the device was not a clock, but a complex mechanical calculator, a computer for predicting the movements of the heavens. It was a brilliant insight, but the full confirmation of his theory would have to wait for the arrival of technology he could have only dreamed of. Derek de Solla Price's pioneering work in the mid-20th century laid the foundation for our understanding of the Antikythera Mechanism. He correctly identified it as a complex astronomical calculator, but the technology of his time was a limiting factor. The early X-ray images he used were grainy and two-dimensional, offering only shadowy glimpses of the device's inner secrets. He could see the gears, but he couldn't fully map their intricate relationships or read the faint text engraved on their surfaces. For decades, his theories remained just that brilliant but largely unproven theories. The full revelation of the mechanism's genius would have to wait for the dawn of the 21st century and the arrival of technology that could finally pierce the veil of time and corrosion. In the early 2000s, an international collaboration of scientists, archaeologists, and engineers was formed, known as the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project. This team brought a new arsenal of high-tech tools to bear on the ancient puzzle. Their goal was to create a complete and perfect digital model of the mechanism, to virtually reconstruct it in every detail without ever having to physically take the fragile, corroded fragments apart. To do this, they employed 2 revolutionary imaging technologies. The first was a custom-built 8-ton X-ray machine that used the principles of computed tomography, or CT scanning. It was, in essence, the most powerful CT scanner in the world at the time. The 82 surviving fragments of the mechanism were placed inside this machine and scanned from every conceivable angle. The powerful X-rays were able to penetrate the dense layers of bronze in calcification, capturing thousands of cross-sectional images. A supercomputer then stitched these thousands of 2D slices together to create a stunningly detailed, high-resolution 3D model of every single component hidden within the fragments. For the first time, scientists could see every gear tooth, every tiny pin and axle, and how they all interconnected. They could digitally disassemble the machine, study each part individually, and then reassemble it in virtual space to see how it worked. The second piece of technology was designed to read the unreadable. The surfaces of the mechanism were covered in faint, microscopic inscriptions in ancient Greek, a kind of user manual etched into the bronze. After 2,000 years at the bottom of the sea, this text was almost completely invisible to the naked eye. To reveal it, the team used a technique called polynomial texture mapping, or PTM. A custom-built dome with over 50 flash units took a series of high-resolution pictures of the fragments, with each picture being lit from a different angle. A computer then combined these images, allowing the researchers to create a virtual rendering of the surface that they could manipulate and light in real time on their computer screens. By moving the virtual light source around, they could catch the faint indentations of the ancient letters, revealing thousands of characters of text that had been hidden for millennia. The results of this high-tech investigation were breathtaking. The CT scans revealed that the mechanism was even more complex than Price had imagined, containing a sophisticated system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears. They revealed the existence of a brilliantly designed system of differential gears, a type of gearing that can add or subtract two different rotational speeds. This was a stunning discovery, as the differential was previously believed to have been invented in the 16th century at the earliest. The Greeks, it turned out, had invented it over 1,500 years before that. The PTM imaging, meanwhile, allowed the team to read the user manual, the text that explained the purpose of the various dials and pointers, finally confirming what the mechanism was designed to do. For the first time since it was lost to the sea, the full, awe-inspiring complexity of the Antikythera Mechanism was laid bare. The corroded lump of bronze had been transformed into a complete digital blueprint. The ghosts in the machine had been revealed. Now, the team could finally answer the ultimate question. What was the purpose of this astonishingly advanced ancient computer? With a complete digital model of its intricate interior, scientists could finally, after a century of speculation, answer the central question: what did the Antikythera Mechanism do? The answer was more astonishing than anyone had dared to imagine. This was not a simple clock or a basic astrolabe. It was a complex, gear-driven analog computer of breathtaking sophistication. It was, in essence, a portable mechanical model of the cosmos as understood by the ancient Greeks, a device that could predict the future and map the heavens with a level of precision that would not be matched for another 1,400 years. The front of the device was its main display. It featured a large circular dial with two concentric rings. The outer ring was inscribed with the 365 days of the Egyptian solar calendar, which was the standard astronomical calendar of the Hellenistic world. The inner ring was marked with the 12 signs of the zodiac. Pointers on this dial, which would have been turned by a hand crank on the side of the box, indicated the precise position of the sun and the moon against the backdrop of the stars for any given day of the year. A user could simply turn the crank to a specific date past, present, or future, and the pointers would move to show the state of the heavens. It was a dynamic, interactive calendar of the cosmos, but its capabilities went far beyond a simple calendar. The mechanism's true genius lay in its ability to model the complex and irregular motions of the heavens. The ancient Greeks knew that the moon's orbit around the Earth is not a perfect circle. It speeds up at certain points and slows down at others. This is known as the first anomaly of lunar motion. Incredibly, the mechanism's creator modeled this complex variation using a brilliant system of gears known as a pin and slot mechanism. This system caused the moon pointer to subtly speed up and slow down as it moved around the dial, perfectly mimicking the real moon's changing velocity in the sky. This demonstrated a level of mechanical sophistication and astronomical understanding that is simply without precedent in any other surviving artifact. If the front of the device was the display, the back was the powerful processing engine, with two large, elegant spiral dials that tracked the grand cycles of the cosmos. The upper back dial was a calendar for the Metonic cycle, a 19-year, 235 lunar month cycle that ancient astronomers used to reconcile the mismatched lengths of the solar year and the lunar month. This was incredibly important for managing civil calendars and scheduling religious festivals that were based on the phases of the moon. Even more impressively, the lower back dial was a dedicated eclipse predictor. This dial was arranged in a spiral that tracked the Saros cycle, an approximately 18-year, 11-day, and 8-hour period over which the sun, moon, and earth returned to the same relative alignment, causing a predictable pattern of eclipses. Inscriptions on this dial, revealed by the modern imaging, acted as a user guide, indicating which months within the cycle would have a lunar or a solar eclipse. The symbols even seemed to indicate the expected character of the eclipse, giving its user the almost godlike power to know, years or even decades in advance, when the sun would grow dark or the moon would turn red. And in a beautiful detail that perfectly weds this high science to the culture that created it, a smaller subsidiary dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Pan-Hellenic Games, the great athletic festivals of ancient Greece. This dial had inscriptions for the Isthmian, Pythian, Nemean, and most famously, the Olympic Games. It was a schedule keeper for the most important social and cultural events in the Greek world, all of it synchronized to the great clockwork of the heavens. This was a device that connected the movements of the stars to the dates of athletic competitions. In total, the Antikythera Mechanism was a masterpiece. It was a portable cosmos in a wooden and bronze box, an analog computer that could predict the future. It took the most advanced astronomical theories of its day and mechanized them, transforming complex mathematical calculations into the elegant, predictable motion of gears. It was the absolute pinnacle of ancient Greek science, a tool for understanding one's place in the universe, and a stunning piece of proof that the history of technology is far more complex than we ever imagined. We have now established what the Antikythera Mechanism was, an astronomical computer of breathtaking genius. But this incredible knowledge creates a historical paradox that is even deeper than the mystery of the corroded lump itself. The mechanism appears in the archaeological record as a complete orphan. It is a technological marvel with no known parents and no known children. Its sophistication implies that it was not the first of its kind, a one-off stroke of genius. A device this refined must be the product of a mature tradition of precision mechanics and theoretical astronomy, a tradition that, apart from this one surviving example, has been almost completely erased from history. This is the central hypothesis of our case file, that the mechanism is a ghost, the last surviving relic of a body of knowledge so advanced that its complete disappearance represents one of the greatest intellectual losses in human history. The first part of this hypothesis is to try and identify the ghost's origin. Who could have built this device? Where did this lost tradition flourish? The inscriptions on the mechanism, written in Koine Greek and using month names common to Corinthian colonies, point to a Greek origin, likely in the northwestern Hellenistic world. The leading theory among researchers today points to the island of Rhodes. In the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, Rhodes was a thriving center of Greek astronomy and engineering. It was home to the great astronomer Hipparchus, whose brilliant theories on the irregular motion of the moon are mathematically encoded into the mechanism's gearing. Furthermore, we have tantalizing textual evidence from the Roman statesman Cicero, who, writing in the 1st century BC, the same time the ship sank, describes seeing a similar device. He wrote of his friend and teacher, Posidonius of Rhodes, constructing an orrery, a mechanical sphere that, quote, shows in its revolutions the movements of the sun and stars and moon, both in the daytime and at night. It is a description that aligns almost perfectly with the Antikythera Mechanism. Cicero also mentions another, even more legendary creator of such devices, the great inventor Archimedes of Syracuse. He wrote that Archimedes, who lived a century earlier, had built 2 similar mechanisms that could model the celestial spheres. While the Antikythera device itself was made after Archimedes' death, it is entirely possible that it was part of a technological tradition that he founded. The creator of our mechanism may have been a brilliant engineer from a school of thought that could trace its lineage directly back to the greatest inventor of the ancient world. This brings us to the second, more profound part of the hypothesis. If this was an established tradition, where are all the other devices? Where are the earlier, cruder prototypes? Where are the written texts, the blueprints, the engineering manuals that would describe how to build such a thing? The answer is that they have all vanished. We are not talking about a lost civilization in the sense of Atlantis, but rather a lost branch of human knowledge, a whole field of expertise that flourished and then died, leaving almost no trace. There are several theories as to why this knowledge was lost. The first is simply the fragility of history. The mechanisms were likely rare, incredibly expensive, and made of valuable bronze. Over the centuries, it is almost certain that most of them were simply melted down for their metal to make swords or coins. The Antikythera mechanism only survived because of a catastrophic accident. It was lost to the sea, sealed in a tomb of water where it was safe from the recycling furnaces of the later Roman and medieval worlds. Furthermore, the written knowledge, the source code for this ancient technology, was likely just as fragile. The great libraries of the ancient world, like the famed Library of Alexandria, which suffered a series of devastating fires and destructions, would have been the repositories for the engineering texts and astronomical treatises needed to build these devices. The loss of these intellectual centers, combined with the social and political chaos of the late Roman Empire, could have easily resulted in this specialized knowledge being lost forever, with no one left who knew how to build or repair the machines. The brilliant abstract science of the Greeks was slowly replaced by the more pragmatic civil engineering of the Romans. The tradition of making miniature, mechanical models of the cosmos simply faded away. The Antikythera mechanism is therefore a ghost of a lost technological world. It proves that the history of technology is not a simple linear march of progress from primitive to advanced. It is a complex story with peaks, valleys, and forgotten dead ends. The ancient Greeks, it seems, reached a peak of mechanical genius that would be lost to humanity for over a millennium, a peak whose full extent we are only just beginning to appreciate, thanks to one miraculous survivor from the bottom of the sea. Our investigation began with a corroded lump of bronze, a forgotten piece of wreckage overshadowed by the magnificent art it was found with. We have followed its journey from an ignored curiosity in a museum basement to its revelation as the world's first analog computer. We have established what it is: a portable mechanical cosmos, a sophisticated astronomical calculator that maps the heavens and predicts their movements. We have also explored the profound mystery it leaves in its wake, the ghost of a lost tradition of scientific and engineering genius. The Antikythera mechanism is not a hoax. It is not the work of aliens or time travelers. It is the authenticated work of human hands, a product of the brilliant minds of the Hellenistic Greek world. And because it is real, it forces us to completely rewrite a significant chapter in the history of science and technology. The long-held narrative of a slow, linear progression of knowledge from the simple tools of antiquity, through a long dark age of technological stagnation to the eventual rebirth of science in the Renaissance, is shown to be a dramatic oversimplification. This single device proves that an incredible peak of mechanical and scientific achievement was reached in the ancient world, a peak that was then lost so completely that it would take humanity another 1,400 years just to get back to the same level. It shatters our often condescending view of the past and demonstrates a level of abstract, theoretical, and mechanical genius that is humbling to behold. It shows us that the ancient world was not just a world of philosophy and marble statues, but also a world of intricate gears, precise calculations, and a deep mechanistic understanding of the cosmos. This leads us to the final, tantalizing question, the one that makes the Antikythera Mechanism not just a historical curiosity, but a profound and ongoing mystery. Is it a complete anomaly? Was it a singular miracle, the work of one transcendent genius who was so far ahead of their time that no one could follow? Or is it something even more incredible? Is it, as is far more likely, simply the tip of a very large and almost completely submerged iceberg? A device this complex is almost never the first of its kind. It is the product of a tradition, of knowledge passed down and refined over generations. This means that for the Antikythera Mechanism to have existed, there must have been others. There must have been earlier, simpler versions, and perhaps even contemporary, more advanced ones. This one single object, which survived only by the pure chance of a shipwreck, opens up a breathtaking possibility that the ancient world was filled with wonders of mechanical engineering that have been completely lost to us. What other devices did Archimedes and the school of Hipparchus create? What other mechanical marvels were displayed in the libraries and cultural centers of the Hellenistic world, only to be destroyed in the fires of war or melted down for their bronze? The Antikythera Mechanism is a ghost that proves the existence of a lost world. It is a powerful reminder that the historical record is profoundly incomplete. History is not a closed book. It is an archive with countless lost files, still waiting to be discovered. This one was found by chance. It makes you wonder, what other impossible technologies, what other rewritten histories are still out there, lying in wait at the bottom of the sea or just beneath the shifting sands of time? If you want to explore more hypotheses that challenge our understanding of the past, subscribe to the Archivist and click the bell so you never miss a file.